that'd be pretty sad. I also want to thank you guys for, I also want to thank the library for letting me hang my work and actually have this talk in the first place, so thumbs up all around. Anyways, I'm going to start off with introducing myself. My name is Martin Culpepper. I'm in 9th grade. I go to GMHS, which is right over there. You can probably see it from here, actually. I mean, I've been taking pictures for about 3 years now, but I've been obsessed with wildlife my entire life, so photography's actually given me something to do with that passion. So, also a future biologist, so yeah, there's something. Now, a lot of times I'll be out taking pictures, I'll be talking to somebody about owls and, a lot about how I know about the owls, and someone will be like, well, you're a kid, you don't know anything. I'll be like, okay, first of all, that's hurtful. Second of all, I watch a lot of things on YouTube, I watch a lot of documentaries, read books, read web pages, so I don't know everything, but I feel like I know enough to be able to share with you guys today about what I do know. So, I spend about 50 to 60 hours a month out taking pictures, and it's funny because, out of all of that, if I get 30 pictures that I really like, that's an amazing month, and I take about 2,000, so it takes a lot of time. And more on the topic of owls, I've seen 70, but actually 71 now, because I saw one last night when we were going out of our house, so yeah.
Wow.
Now, we'll be talking about 9 species of owls today. 2 of them I have not seen in the wild, which are the northern saw-whet owl and the barn owl, these 2. And I'll get into why I haven't seen those in a little bit. But I have captured pictures of those from actually her, Jane Kelly, who will be presenting a show on owls. And those are all real owls in there, so yeah. Now, before I start talking about the actual specifics of owls, I'm going to talk about a few characteristics that they all share. So, first thing is, a lot of people think that owls only operate at night. So everyone thinks they're only nocturnal, which means they're out at night. But it isn't true. So they can either be diurnal, which means they're out in the day, or crepuscular, which means only out mostly in the early mornings and later in the day, so sunrise and sunset. Now, another thing is, owls have amazing camouflage. So can you guys see the owl in here? Really? Yeah, so that's a little easier, but I have a lot harder ones to show you guys today, so that's going to be fun. Now, Now, owls have amazing eyesight, so they have to be able to see at night, have amazing vision, be able to see at night and hunt their prey. So, but a thing that a lot of people didn't know is that owls have ultraviolet vision. So, that means they can see all the colors we can see, plus a whole new range of colors. Try imagining a new color. It's nothing. So they can see our colors, plus that's the best I can represent it as, but I mean, I can't because I can't imagine new colors either. So, now what allows owls to have such great eyesight is their eyes are very long and have a weird bell-like shape, and that's, as you see on the right-hand side, is a side representation of what their eye would look like if you cut it in half and showed it from the side. But due to their size and shape, owls are not able to move their eyes like we are, so they're very fixed in one location. So that's why owls are able to do that creepy thing where they turn their head 270 degrees, which is represented there. That's very unsettling, I'll tell you guys. You take pictures for a while and you just see it turn its head around slowly and creepily. Yeah, it's a little weird. Get used to it, though. Now, what allows owls to do this is they have 14 vertebrae in their neck. So vertebrae are the necks, the bones that you have in your neck, not the necks you have in your bone. But so owls have 14 of those. We only have 7, so that allows them to actually turn their head all the way around. Also, their blood vessels are set up, and arteries are set up in a way that if they turn their head, their blood supply won't get pinched off to their brain. So we were able to do that with the way our blood vessels were set up. I mean, our blood supply would get cut off to your brain, and you want blood going to your brain if you want to do a crazy little thing called living. So, yeah, it's a little difficult for us to do. Now, another thing about owls is they have amazing hearing. So, unfortunately, I have to inform you that those aren't actually ears on top of its head. I mean, I've known that for a while, but I had to inform my mom about a month ago that they're not. So a lot of people think they have little ears like a rabbit. Their ears are actually located on the sides of their heads, and some owls' ears are higher and lower, on each side of its head, so it's able to locate sound. And also, a good way to tell if an owl depends on sound more than others, if they have a distinct facial disc, which is that heart shape on their face. Now, this is the striped owl. Striped owls are working. I'm just kidding. This is skunk. And you're probably like, well, I didn't come here for a presentation on skunks. I came here for a presentation on the owls. Owls don't, owls have amazing hearing and amazing eyesight, but they're kind of lacking in the smell department, or, matter of fact, have no smell at all, pretty much. So, gray horned owls are the only predators of skunks. So they see this, the French throat furball, and they're like, oh, what's this? I mean, it's just a snack, pretty much. So, gray horns are the only predators of skunks. Now, another thing that all owls eat, every owl from the smallest one to the largest one we're talking about today, all eat these little rodents like mice, shrews, voles, moles, all those little guys. about owls is, you've probably heard this, that owls have silent flight, right? They actually do. And one time I was sitting on a road, watching out in the field, and the owl that I was looking for flew right behind my head, flew right on the other side. I had no idea it was there until my mom came up. She's like, "Did you see the owl?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "It flew right behind you." I was like, "Are you serious?" So what allows them to do this is they have serrated feathers, so it looks kind of like a serrated knife, as you can see. This helps dole out the noise when they fly, so it flows over quite nicely. They also have smooth bottoms, which helps, help the airflow, go under. Now another thing is owls mate for life. So here's a pair of owls. I'm going to have to admit, a little embarrassingly, it took us 45 minutes to see this guy. But over there, that's the female. And unlike, mammals where the males are larger than females, in the bird world, especially owls, females are much larger than males are. So this one over here is the male, this one is the female. So the female is 25% larger, so she's able to take, larger prey. Now, next picture I have here is an owl in a nest. Now, what most birds will do is they'll mate for life, and they'll fly around, they'll find a place, and they'll build a family there over years and years and years. What owls do is they fly through the countryside together, find a nest, say, "Hey, that's a cool nest." They sit there, they take that nest, and that's where they nest. So they don't build their own nests. So they'll either take nest, they'll nest in cavities, like holes in trees, or what some owls do, technically I guess it's making their own nest, they'll sit down, turn around once, and that's their nest for the entire season. So they're not the most inventive carpenters. Now, going on to the next thing, if you want to find owls, owls roosting or owl nests, a good way to look for them is pellets. Now, a pellet is when an owl eats a prey item, for example, like a mouse. When it eats it, the undigestible matter, fur and bones, comes up as a pellet. It's a ball of fur and bones, nothing fancy. But if you want to go look for them, just look for these things, because they throw them up and they'll be underneath the tree where they're roosting. So if you see a lot of those, you might want to look up the tree. You actually might find an owl that way. Now, I'm going to start getting into the actual species that we have out here. This is the first one that I have not seen in the wild. This is a northern saw-whet owl. The cutest owl out here. That's not an opinion, that is fact. And the reason they're so adorable is they're about the size of a soda can. Now, they're really, really tiny. They're about 6 to 8 inches maximum. Now, these guys are very difficult to find because they like sitting in spruces and conifers and cedar trees. So, very dense ones when they're roosting and near waters where you usually find them. About 5 to 11 feet up. But very difficult because of their size, and they blend in. And the thing about these birds is if you're walking next to a trail, and there's a tree next to the trail and he sees you walking by him, if he sees you, what he's going to do is close his eyes and sway with the wind. Like most birds, what they'll usually do is an owl, they see you coming, they'll fly the other direction. But they would rather have to, be close to you than deal with these. So, yeah. Little owls have a little bit of a problem when they try to fly because they're extremely camouflaged, so birds will not see them in trees. But once they fly, hawks and falcons will just come right out of the sky and try to get them. Our bigger owls will be safe, they'll just get harassed. But, yeah, saw-whets have a hard time when they're out flying around in the middle of the day, which is why you won't usually see them in the middle of the day. Now, going on to the next guy, this is an eastern screech owl. Can anyone find the owl in this picture? One of my favorite pictures, yeah. Okay. Found him? Okay. I'm going to point it out. There he is right there. That's him. That's him closer. So, you see him now? Yeah. So these guys are very hard to find, but they're very common. Here's a better picture of them now. Not much bigger than a saw-whet, about 2 inches larger. And what they eat are like frogs, worms, bugs, and mice. So things are small enough for them to attack without, actually getting eaten themselves. Now, they like to sit in holes, which is, the best places to find them. So if you find like a big old tree that's like dead and has a bunch of holes in it, you might want to check that every time you go by, because one day you might go by and there's an owl in it. Now, these birds are very easily accessible. So I got this guy in the remote wilderness of downtown Newburyport. So not the most difficult birds to find. All of the eastern screech owls I've taken pictures of have been right on the side of the road. Here's another shot of the same guy from a different angle. Now they have a call that sounds kind of like a, so it's not that typical hoot hoot like the saw-whet that has a call. It's like a. So if you hear those two calls at night, probably means you have like a screech owl or a saw-whet near you. I heard the saw-whet one time at CVS in Georgetown. You know what I'm talking about? Heard one of the saw-whets and spent 20 minutes looking for it at night. To no avail, but still looking. Now, here's another picture of him in a hole. So these birds will often have a bunch of different holes they like to be in. The one on the left is 1.5 years ago. The one on the right is about a month ago. So Yeah, about a year and a half ago, this one liked to sit in this hole, but the tree got cut down, so it sat in this hole. Now, this isn't Photoshop, that's not turned black and white. Unlike most of the other owls out here, these guys come in two colors, red and gray. So this is the same hole. These two are a mated couple. They've been together for about a few years now. And now that they cut the landowner cut down the other tree, now they both have to sit in this tiny little hole. So I can imagine how uncomfortable it would be. I mean, look at it. It's like this long, that tall. So these owls like to be in a bunch of different varieties of holes. So these would be in like very long holes. Here's another green one, and this hole is like this tall and very shallow. I like this one. This is my favorite hole. It's strong. It still looks like a hobbit hole, you know? It's all like that. So yeah, they'll like a bunch of different varieties of holes. So you can find them very long ones, very stereotypical, just circles. Ones like these, just divots and bark. Now, going on to our next guy. This is a barn owl. Last one I haven't seen in the wild. This is because, like, mainland Massachusetts, they're pretty much not here on the mainland. Nantucket and Martha's Vineyards are good places to see them, and Rhode Island and Maryland are also good places. But due to like a loss of habitat here, they don't like to be here that often. But if you want to look for them, where they'll be is in places where the grass is this high and big open expanses near abandoned buildings. They found one in Lexington earlier this year that froze. So yeah, I know, it was sad. But for the most part, they're not usually in this area. But Nantucket and Martha's Vineyards is a good place to find them. And these guys are specialized for hunting voles. You can tell by that, heart-shaped disc around the face. That, yeah, I know, they're one of my favorites. But, so they're specialized in hunting voles, and their call sounds like the worst call you'll ever hear in the wild. It's this gut-wrenching scream. It sounds like you're rubbing, like, a fork on a plate. Just I'm not going to try and represent that, because I'm a train wreck. But, yeah, so that pretty much covers the barn owl. If you want to see them, Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket are two good places around here. And Rhode Island's also not a bad place. So, our next guy is a long-eared owl. Now, he is I know, that was a fun picture. It was way up high in the tree. They're more difficult owls to find. They're migratory, so they come here in the winter. And they're not usually here in the summer. There are some here in the summer, but for the most part, just mainly in the winter. Now, these guys like to be in groups. So here's 3 of them in a tree. There's a 4th one in another tree. So there's 3 of them right there. One year they had 24 of them between 4 trees in this place. So yeah, they love to be in little groups. So these guys also hunt the same way that barn owls do, and its cousin. So there's him sitting high up in the tree. They like to glide around big open expanses. And what they do is, unlike other owls that will just sit there and look at the ground and wait for something to move, they'll fly for miles around a circle, just going around, and they'll listen. It's kind of fun to watch them because they'll fly like this, and they'll hover, and then they'll fly, and then they'll crash into the ground. So they're very specialized at hunting voles. So here's another one, find the owl. You guys see him? Yeah, there he is, right there. Saw that from the road. I'm pretty proud of that one. But so yeah, here's another shot of him from the side. Now, these birds, along with its cousin that we're talking about next, have a little bit of a problem with rain, because even though they're soundproof and super stealthy, they're not waterproof. It's like throwing a super soaker out in the rain, kind of. So the way they hunt, by gliding over fields, it's not the best, because they'll get very wet and they'll get weighed down, so it's hard for them to hunt in the rain. So you'll never see these guys flying out in the rain. But actually, long expanses of rain that are like a month long or 2 months long can actually kill these birds, because they're not able to go out and hunt. But these guys are strictly nocturnal. Here's my favorite picture of them. Now, the places you'll find them roosting are either this low on the ground in thick, like thickets, deciduous thickets, which means just like, leaf trees and bushes and whatnot. Like medium high up, like 20 feet up, like this guy was, and, medium high trees, or all the way at the tippy top in, really, really high trees like this guy was. He was way up high. So those are the few places that you'll see them. These guys are strictly nocturnal, so seeing them out in the day is not very common. If you see one out in the day, you should probably apply for a lottery ticket, because you're pretty lucky. But going on to his cousin, now this guy is he's more diurnal, more crepuscular. He likes to be out early mornings and later in the day. So that shows a good example of what they like to hunt in. Now here's a closer look at them. Now, there's obviously, a few differences. They don't have those little ear tufts on their head. They actually do have these really small ones that sit up on the front, but I haven't gotten a picture of them with them up yet. They look goofy when they have their little ear tufts up. But, so here's another picture to show, like, what time they like to hunt during the day. Now, these guys are also specialized in voles, and they're very, more aggressive birds than other ones. So they'll, fight with other birds that are out flying. So other short-eared, harriers, they'll just go and fight. Harriers is kind of hawk that hunts the same way. So, you'll see them fighting. It's pretty fun, they're just flying all over the place. Now, sometimes these guys will take rests on sticks when they're out hunting. So, they won't always be flying. They'll fly and then they'll land on a stick and they'll sit there. That's him just taking a break from hunting for wolves. Now, here shows another picture of them flying. And this is him on a post. So this also shows, I like this picture because it shows the terrain they like to hunt in. So, this shows, that large expanse of open grasslands. Now, an interesting thing about these guys is they like to sleep on the ground. Now, long-eared owls, a lot of the other ones we'll be talking about today like to sit, up in trees. These guys just along with the snowy owl, like to just sleep in the ground. So, if you want to waste your time and sit there with a scope and scan a whole entire field, you can. I'm not going to stop you. I just wouldn't do it. It's hard. Yeah. The one on the left just almost tried to catch a vole and he missed. This one was just waking up from a nap. So, yeah. Now, going on to our next guy, this is the barn owl. Now, he's very common in Georgetown because the last three we've been talking about, they're out flying big open fields. How many big open fields are there in Georgetown, right? So these guys are the ones you hear at night that go. You know that call? Yeah. I remember I was doing homework one night and I heard that. It was cool for the first 15 minutes, but after an hour and a half, it kind of got old. So, yeah. Now here's another picture of them hiding behind some sticks. They like to be in old deciduous trees, a mix between deciduous and coniferous, which means pine trees. They'll be all over the place. They like to be in swampy areas and near water. Now, these guys will hunt a lot of things. They'll hunt snakes, weasels if they dare, mice, frogs. They love frogs. So, I like the picture all the way on the right because it shows him shaking his head. It shows him turning his head all the way, upside down. Now, here's one he was stretching. Now, these birds are mostly nocturnal, but they're not opposed to hunting in the day like a lot of other ones are. So if you're if they're sitting in a tree and then they hear a sound that wakes them up and they try to get back to sleep but they can't, they'll just go out and hunt, So they're not strictly nocturnal. So that was one who was getting ready to hunt during the sunset. Now I like this picture, it's a pretty good story. It was about 6 o'clock in the morning. I wake up and it's pouring outside. So I run to my mom and I'm like, okay, we have to go outside. And she's like, isn't it pouring? I'm like, yes, exactly. So barn owls like the rain. Now unlike short-eared owls, barn owls, and long-eared owls, they don't have to glide over long expanses. They can just sit there in a tree and watch for mice and snakes on the ground. And then once they see them, they can just jump off. So they're also called rain owls in some areas because people see them a lot out in the rain. Here's another one. No reason I picked that. I just think it's cute. And this is how you would usually see them. So there's a lot of them in Georgetown just because of the terrain that we have here. So how many of you have heard the call? Yeah, so you hear a lot of those. And then these are also ones that you see a lot because, they're not strictly nocturnal. But you can tell they have great hearing because that facial disc that they have, the heart shape. And then this owl was he was about 30 feet away from me in the woods. And then he flew at me and landed from me to the owl boxes right there. So he got really close. But I would not advise do not get close to owls if they do not want you being close to them. Let them come to you because, you don't want to scare them. Now going on to our next guy, this is the gray horned owl. And he's the more stereotypical kind of owl you think of, Winnie the Pooh. He's one that actually goes. So they have the big ears. And this is our biggest year-round owl here. Another picture of them. So these guys are, I'm not going to say they're the trash pandas of the owl world, but they eat anything that comes across their path. So squirrels, mice, cats, dogs, young foxes, young deer, snakes, frogs, other owls, hawks, pretty much anything's on the menu. So where you find these guys is in, as you see by this picture, the top third, fourth of pine trees. So if you want to look up in the top 75%, right next to the trunk, they're about this tall, so they're big birds. And they'll be sitting right next to the trunk. They're more nocturnal. That's why you hear a lot of their calls at night. Actually, that's what I saw last night. We walked out of our house. It was flying over a bunch of other houses. Now, here's another picture. Here's the male that I showed you earlier. The female's over there. But this gives you a better look at their ears and their face and their facial disc. Now, this is the babies in the nest. Now, these are the guys that will often, come in and steal nests. Long-eared owls, they'll take crow's nest, and then Short-eared owls are those ones that sit down and turn around once. They just take a nest. But these guys will often steal a nest. I'm not sure what kind of nest that is. It just kind of took it. So you want to be careful around great horned owl nests because they will defend their nest just like any other bird, or any other animal defending their babies. So I mean, it's mildly unpleasant. It's like getting hit by a metal baseball bat with nails. So you're gonna want to be careful. So here's another picture just showing the stuff that they'll take. Yeah, so I mean that's bigger prey for most owls, but for the great horn, it's nothing. And here's another shot of the babies, so you can see how they're getting the ear tufts developed. And now great horned owls, barred owls, and a lot of other owls that nest in trees, what they'll do is they'll do something called branching, which is where they'll come out of the nest and they'll glide around and hop around. This helps them learn how to fly. This guy was branching. He came down a tree. You can see him. He was looking at me. Didn't like me, so I kind of backed off. But so yeah, no. Most of the owls actually all the owls that nest in trees need to branch to learn how to fly. Great horned owls will often, after they come out of the tree, they'll spend a period of time on the week on the ground, and they'll just sit there and let the parents come down and feed them. Barred owls will usually come up and climb up the tree again. Now, here's another picture of them. This guy was calling back to its mate, but they're sitting there, calling back to each other. So, and then here's a female that was out hunting. So even though I said they're almost found exclusively in big pine trees, when they're out hunting, they'll land in deciduous trees and go after, big prey. They'll eat all the owls on this list. Actually, their main predator are barn owls. So if there's a barn owl in the area, they're going to want to be careful because these guys are fast and just come and just attack them. Now, going on to the next owl, this is one of the most iconic ones, the snowy owl, due to the Harry Potter franchise. Rest in peace, Hedwig. Anyways, so these guys are very large birds. They're the heaviest bird in North America, and they're related to the great horned owl. Now, every 4 years, there's an eruption of them. So this year was a great year. I saw 25 individuals this year, which is a lot. Yeah, and I didn't see them only once. I saw them a bunch of times over and over again. So here's them sitting on a stick. Now these guys will like a lot of different terrain. You can see them sitting on the rocks there. But so they'll like to sit on rocks, big open beaches, dunes. They'll often sit on trees, even though there's not a large amount of trees up in the Arctic tundra, because these guys migrate down from the Arctic every year. Now, the reason you don't see that many just pure white ones or mostly black ones, even though you do see a few of those, because those are more just mature adults. What you see here is usually these kind of white ones with brown speckles, and those are juveniles. So what happens is up in the Arctic, they're not strong enough to survive a full Arctic winter. So the juveniles have to fly down here to live throughout the winter. And after a few years of coming down here, they'll stay up in the Arctic more and more. Now, here's another one. So these birds will hunt two things when they're out here. They'll hunt voles and mice like all the other owls, but they'll also hunt seabirds. So up in the Arctic, like along the shoreline, they'll fly down and they'll find a duck and they'll take the duck. So these birds are very fast. They can fly about 55 miles an hour, and that's what I like. You can show them on the beaches. And one thing I do not like telling people is a bunch of times people will come up to me like, I've been looking in the forests of Plum Island for 10 years. I still haven't seen one. And I'm like, yeah, they're not in the forest, because they could not survive in the forest. Because in the Arctic, they're not made to hunt in the forest. They're made to, hover way up high and watch for lemmings. So I have to inform them that 10 years of looking in the forest, they're not going to see anything, which is always unfortunate. Here's one in a tree. I'm not sure what he's doing there, just sitting in trees, I guess. Here's one going in for to catch a vole. He missed, but he almost got it. Now, a good way to tell if they're hunting voles or hunting seabirds is if they're hunting seabirds, they'll be clean, because they'll be going down in the water and catching a seabird. If they're hunting voles, they're gonna have dirt on their talons or dirt on their face. Now, these are also the kind of owls out in the Arctic. They'll sit down on the ground and then turn around once. They'll have their nest. But in some years when hunting is good and prey is good, they'll actually make their nest out of lemmings, which are these little rodent-like things. Yeah, that's a fun fact, Sharon. Probably the most creative, most creative house building they'll make. It's like building your house out of hamburgers, essentially. Now, here shows them on a beach. This is the iconic pink house that everyone knows, everyone loves. I like the pink house. And then this is him on a pine tree. Now, I don't know what he's doing on a pine tree either. There's not that many pine trees up in the Arctic tundra, but I guess he's just there. Here's him on rocks. And then here's him on a telephone pole, also with the one on the right's also on a pink house. And so they'll be sitting on sticks. So they say they're diurnal when they're out here, But in the middle of the day, they're not that active. They're sleeping a lot. And I'll tell you, there's nothing more boring than watching a sleeping snowy owl. I'm sorry, it's just a white dot that sits on the side closed like this for like 4 hours straight. I know some people in here that will sit there and watch this owl for like 7 hours until it flies. I'm like, I can't do that. I'm sorry. But during like sunrise and sunset, they'll often be hunting, like this guy was. He was out. There was an apron. The flood came in. There was a cooking apron. He came in and just grabbed the apron. I don't know why he grabbed the apron, but he kept attacking it. Now, here's where you'll often see them. Is on dunes, along beaches. So this is the most common place to see them, is like on dunes. So like Plum Island, Salisbury, Seabrook, all those places are good along the coast. They're all good places to see them. If you walk on beaches and look up on the dunes, you see a white dot. You know, you have found a snowy owl. When there's no snow on the ground, they're probably the easiest thing to find. Now females, a fun fact, this is a female snowy owl. Now females, when they get older, become a lot more darker, while males become more white. So that's why you don't see that many pure white ones or more dark ones, because they're all up in northern areas when they have to get pushed down, because the more northern it is, the better it is for the owls. This is a funny story. This was the first snowy owl this year, and we were up in Boston taking pictures of greyhound owls, and we saw someone had a video on Facebook that they just saw a snowy owl at Plum Island. So we shoot down to Plum Island, we get there, and the people are leaving the beach, like, oh, he keeps flying this way, so we're going to go all the way down to this lot. And me and my mom were like, okay, we don't think he's going to fly all the way down there. So we get on the beach this way. We had an argument. I'm like, I think we should go this way. She's like, I think we should go this way. So we went this way, and we're walking. After about 15 minutes of walking, I see a dot on a dune really far away. I thought, maybe that's a snowy owl. 3 miles later, and an hour and a half later, we finally get to it, and she was sitting on a dune. She was just sitting there, and she looked at us, and then she went to go hunt, so she landed up on the post. We had a great time. We stayed for about 45 minutes. Then we realized it was, an hour and a half walk back. And it was sunset, so we're like, okay, we leave this guy, to his own devices, and we're walking. It turns dark within 20 minutes. Then it starts raining on us, so it was a little unfortunate. Still had a fun time, but I like that story. Yeah. Now, our last game we'll be talking about today is the great gray owl. Now, this is the largest owl that we have here. He has like a 5 to 6 foot wingspan, and one of my favorites, definitely. Now, these guys are very migratory birds, and they're not supposed to be around here, but in the winter, some of them migrate down here because, territory shortages due to, all the other ones. Now, they'll be in Canada, Montana, Wyoming, and Alaska, so those are all great places to see them. But I remember last year, one of them came up to New Hampshire, and, came down to me. Yeah. So anyways, so I went to go see this guy, and we didn't think we were actually going to find him, but lo and behold, he was there. So these are 2 different pictures, but this shows the way they hunt. Now these guys are specialized in voles and mice, but they don't hunt the same way that barn owls and short-eared owls do. So what they do is they don't glide around fields. They sit there on a tree, and these guys probably have some of the best hearing on the list, because they can hear, if they're up in a tree, they can hear a mouse's heartbeat underneath a foot of snow. And that's it's insane. So what they'll do is they'll often be sitting in a tree and they'll hear a mouse running 30 feet away. They'll jump off the tree and they'll just slowly glide, and they'll listen and they'll move their head, because they have one ear that's higher than the other, so they'll sit there and they'll move their head. And without ever seeing their prey, they're able to punch their fist through the snow and catch the mouse without ever seeing it. So that's pretty cool. So here shows the wingspan of the owls. This is after he went in to try to get a vole. He missed, but I guess his hearing didn't help him that much that time. Yeah. Now here's some more pictures. These birds actually, even though they're larger than great horns and snowies, they are about half the weight of a snowy owl. Snowy owl weighs 5 pounds. This guy weighs 2.5. So even though they're huge, they're very light. And I'll tell you, I was taking a picture, and since they're so light, they fly like a plastic bag in the winter, like this when they fly. So he was sitting up in a tree, and I had my camera on him. He was about to fly, and I'm used to snowy owls that launch off the dune and fly 55 miles an hour. So he went to launch, I did this. Because I expected to go, and I came back and I couldn't find. That's why I missed the flight shot. And you can see on the right-hand side there, that's him. He almost got blown off the stick because he's so light. And then here's him who was about to, jump off. I love that picture because he has hands. That's actually the only picture I got when I went like that, because I missed him. But these birds are like I said, they're migratory, but they like to be way up in northern areas. So you'll find them in Portland, Washington, anywhere where there's a lot of snow during the winter, because they they're built to be in the cold. They have a lot of fluff. You can take your hand and just stick it in a great gray owl's feathers. It'll just keep going until you hit this little tiny bird in the middle. They're not that small, but they're still not huge. nowhere near as strong as snowy owls and great horns are. Now, that pretty much wraps up all the owls that we have out here. But first I want to talk about for a second how you can like, help owls be safe and not hurt them. First of all, don't use rat poisoning because like when you use rat poisoning for for rats, the mice and rats will eat it, and then the owl will eat the rat, and then the owl will die. So I remember one of these owls on the list, actually the male great horn from that was in the mated pair. He ate a rat that had rat poisoning, and 2 hours after I saw him, 2 days after I saw him, they found him on a golf course. So yeah, that's sad. Also be very careful when you're driving at night, especially right now, because spring peepers, those frogs, they hear whistling, they're like in marshes. The barn owls love to eat those. So when they're on the road, when the frogs are on the road at night, you want to be careful when you're driving because barn owls will come down and try to get those. So just always be careful. And then also keep your distance from owls. Don't stress them out. If the owl does not like you, do not get too close to it because you don't want to distress them. So, yeah, that pretty much wraps up my presentations. Does anyone have any questions?
About the eruptions.
Yes.
I've read food shortage, food surplus. What are the thoughts on that?
So the thoughts of an eruption is more of like a food surplus of lemmings in the Arctic. So lemmings in the Arctic are their main food. So what happens is when there's a lot of lemmings, they'll often make their nests out of lemmings, and then they'll be able to support more babies. So instead of having like 3 or 4 up in the Arctic, they can have 7 babies, and then that provides a lot of new other owls. So they'll all come down here because the juveniles will all come down here, and they'll have to move down here because there's not enough territory and there's too cold up in the Arctic for winter. Hello? You? Oh, never mind. Okay.
Hi, Monty.
Hi.
What is your favorite?
Oh boy. Okay.
I know that's gonna be a hard one.
Yeah. So my favorite kind of varies. A few months ago it was the great gray, then it went to the barn owl, then it went to the long-eared owl. So it kind of changes. But if I had to pick an overall favorite, it'd have to be the short-eared owl. They're the most fun to take pictures of because they're always flying, they're moving all over the place, they're diving into the ground. So you have to find them. The other day I was taking pictures of one on a hill. I was on the road. And then the owl came over the hill, so I tried to run over to this side of the hill. He went back around and went over there, so I had to run to the other side. So they're a little difficult and more challenging to get pictures of. So yeah.
Martin, how long did you wait before? What was your longest wait to get a shot of an owl?
Longest wait. Let's see. The great gray owl, I stayed for about 3 hours in negative 10-degree temperature. So that was fun. But longest wait.
That's pretty long.
I know, that's pretty long, yeah. But there was sometimes, you wait for snowy owls to fly, and I just sat there for a few hours and just waited. The longest I've ever waited for any picture, though, I was at a fox den, waited 8 hours, 5 years to finally get these baby foxes. And right when we were leaving, I finally got them sitting in the den, so yeah, that was good, yeah. Yes?
How long have you been photographing and studying owls?
I've been studying them my whole entire life. When I was a kid, I used to carry this huge encyclopedia over my shoulder. I was like 3. So, yeah, I loved all animals, especially owls, because I just found them fascinating. But, I've been photographing them for about 2.5 years now. The first, half a year of photography took a while for me to find owls. But, yeah, so through photography, I've been able to photograph 43 different owls. And I've been able to find a lot of different ones through that. Yes?
What is the purpose of the ear tufts? Does it help with hearing, or?
Some people believe it helps with hearing. It's not completely no. We do know though that it helps for communication. So we don't know what all the signs mean, but maybe when they're down, they're relaxed, and when they're up, I don't know what all the signs mean, but people do know they're used for communication, and some people believe that they are used for hearing. So it really varies on what your beliefs are for those. Yeah.
Hi Martin, what time of day were you capturing that screech owl when you were ready for it?
Oh, so the screech owl, the best time to see them is depending on how many holes they have. Yeah. One of them, I remember last year, anytime after 9 o'clock to the end of the day, he would always be out.
During 9 a.m.
Yeah, 9 a.m. They're not usually out that early in the morning because they want to sun themselves, so they'll come out and they'll sit in the sun, they'll just puff themselves up. So. But anytime after 9 to the end of the day, if they share holes, if they have a bunch of different holes that they sit through, it's a hit or miss. So yeah. Any other questions?
Can I get my gun?
How many holes would the same owl have?
That's a good question. I don't know if there's any limit to them. I know the one on the one I was showing you earlier that had the 2 holes. I know there's at least 2 that it has, but I think there's a few more. But I'm not sure the exact amount that they'll ever have.
But they'd be in a common...
Yeah, they'd be in all a common area. Like those 2 I showed you, the one that was a year and a half ago, and then the one that was this year, they're right across the street from each other. So you can look on this side and see the hole from that side. Okay, yeah. Any questions? Yeah.
Just a question about your gallery. Does it continue through the library?
Yeah, it's going to continue a little bit after, about for a month, so yeah.
But is it just this room?
Oh, no, upstairs, there's a lot of stuff and a lot of pictures, and then there's a few in the child's library over there, so, yeah. Any other questions?
I have a question from Facebook Live,
Okay.
California.
Interesting.
They say, are owls wise?
So this is a funny thing. I actually forgot to mention this in the characteristic of owls. So since they have gigantic eyes, they're kind of missing a part of something. So essentially, if you give two crows a string, two crows, two strings, they're able to recognize, okay, if we both pull this down at the same time, we'll get food. They ran the same experiment with the great gray owl. They gave him one owl, one string, and they told him, okay, you just have to pull the string and get food by yourself. He wasn't able to put 2 and 2 together. So, yeah, now, I mean, they're smart in other aspects, but when it comes to presentation, when it comes to, being able to think and put, 2 and 2 together, they're not the most creative problem thinkers, but this actually helps them in the wild, because when they're in the nest, other birds of prey, the siblings are like, okay, if I attack my sibling and get him out of here, I get all of his food. Owls are not able to think, oh, well, if I attack my sibling, I get his food. They're like, well, he's my sibling. So barn owl babies will feed each other. Snowy owl babies will actually gather around the weakest one for warmth. And then great horned babies tolerate each other, so it all kind of works out. Yeah. Yes.
Do the owls have a predator in hawks or?
That depends on the owl. So the bigger ones don't usually have predators since they're very high up. The only predator of owls out here, of big ones, are bald eagles. So they're huge. They have like an 8-foot wingspan. So they're the only birds that are able to push great horned owls out of their nest. But for the most part, like the bigger owls don't usually have predators because they're way up high. I mean, if a snowy owl ran into like a coyote on the ground, it might have some difficulties. But snowy owls actually in the Arctic will attack wolves that get too close to their nest. They'll fly up and just dive bomb them, and they'll throw the fur of the wolf everywhere. So yeah. Any other
Can I
questions?
follow up with that question?
Yeah.
So if there's a nesting bald eagle, then you would expect that there wouldn't be too many owls in the area?
Yeah, not in the area. Bald eagles won't usually go out of their way to find owls because, I mean, they're hard birds, they're strong. But if they see one flying, they might go after it. It's funny, though, because owls get their revenge on other birds during the night. Because what other birds do is they come, like little chickadees will come and harass, like, screech owls and saw-whet owls and go chickadee at it, and they'll annoy it. And then hawks and crows will come and dive bomb the bigger owls. But at night, the owls kind of get their revenge because they'll fly over a bald eagle nest and just whack them in the head. Yeah, the eagles can't do anything about it. Actually, great horned owls will actually attack ospreys when they're in the nest for prey. So they get their revenge at night, but during the day they're kind of harassed a lot. Yeah. Any other questions?
Will they poach other owls' nests?
Not usually, because they don't usually build their own nests. But and once the owl's in the nest, the female usually stays there. So they'll probably just find another nest to take. Males will usually stay around the nest, like in the near vicinity. But for the most part, the female just stays in the nest most of the time until the babies kick her out because they're too big. Any other questions? Yeah.
Maybe you already said this, but do owls mate for life?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
What's the lifespan?
Lifespan in the wild, it's kind of hectic because bad things can happen to owls. But I know there's in captivity there's like 24-year-old great horned owls. The smaller ones tend to have a smaller lifespan because they're just smaller, so like other things will eat them. But if it lives like a long lifespan, like a great horned owl, if it lives healthy, they live to like 24, 30 years old. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's.
So, what are your next plans with owls?
I need to find the northern saw-whet and the barn owl in the wild.
And then you're done with owls forever?
No, I'm just gonna keep going. I'm gonna give a few more presentations on them, hopefully. But yeah, for the most part, like I've seen most of them. I want to see some, the saw-whet and the barn owl. I want to find more long-eared owls, and I want to get all the pictures there. No, I can't. I want to get them, hunting things all the time. So yeah.
Are you gonna lead any owl walks for people?
Actually been thinking about it. I probably will. Like an owl drive, where I drive around to show people where to see some of them. Yeah.
Nice work.
Great job.
sums up everything about the owls out here. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Oh,
Thank you.
what?
We can see up there, we're upstairs.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of pictures that I have upstairs of like snowy owls and all that good stuff. A lot of snowy owl pictures, you know, due to the explosion this year. So, and also, Jane Kelly's presentation will start now with live owls. She has real owls in this box, but not that they're alive. So, yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Have a great
Follow Martin, because it's like getting up and singing after somebody in karaoke. That's really good. You stole all my information. Anyway, my name's Jane Kelly. I live up in New Hampshire, and I'm a state and federally licensed educator, falconer, and rehabber. I specialize in raptors. Can anybody tell me what a raptor is? What did you say? Bird of prey. What does that mean when you think of bird of prey?
Big beaky, big
Talons. Yeah, big talons, hooked beak, right? They're very, very powerful. If you look at the position of their eyes, so I'm not going to have you rub on that, okay, because it'll scare the birds. You can't touch this, because this is hopefully a poop cloth, so you don't even want your hands near it. If you look at the position of a raptor, a bird of prey's eyes, they're located in front. And if you look at our eyes are located in front. So eyes in front like to hunt, that's a predator. Eyes on the side like to hide. So it's interesting when you look at, you know, squirrels, where are their eyes? On the side. Rabbits, right? People, front. Cats, right? Then you look at a horse, side. And I always think of a horse as like, God, that has to be a predator because it's so big, but it's actually prey. And where there are people, there are rodents, and where there are rodents, there are raptors. So they're everywhere. They're in cities, you know, we're surrounded by rodents. So we need these guys to control the populations. And you know, Martin covered on a great topic of rodenticides, insecticides. We have animals that will control those populations. So we don't want to use poison if we can. I'd recommend using snap traps. You know, it's the most humane way, and it's more effective, and it doesn't, you know, penetrate our earth and our water sources, because eventually we get it into our bodies. So, you know, we need to take care of Mother Earth. I'm going to bring out the first owl that Martin hasn't seen out in the wild, and I'll probably touch on some of the same, you know, information that he shared with you, and I might add a little bit something to it. So the first bird is a little northern saw-whet. It is our smallest owl in our area. And they're usually found in groups. Does anybody know what a group of owls is called?
Congress.
A parliament, yes. And the reason that they're in numbers is, why do you think that they're in numbers?
Safety.
They're safer in numbers, right? And it makes sense that saw-whets would be in numbers, because if they're all in some sort of evergreen or pine tree, they're going to mimic pine cones, right? So they hold their bodies. Oh yeah, you can take photos. So this is a northern saw-whet. It's our smallest owl. Like Martin said, it's about the size of a soda can. They will constrict their bodies really tight. They'll turn at an angle, and they almost look like a little jagged branch or a little porcupine, a pine cone. And one thing that I look at when I'm looking at these birds is I do look at the color of their eyes. I also look at the size of their feet, and that determines what time of day usually they're hunting. It also determines what they can actually kill with their feet. So you look at how little his feet are, and he even has feathers all the way to the tips of his talons. So he's equipped for snow and the conditions in our area. They do migrate south through here. Last year we had a huge number of them, and this year we'll probably have a lot of them mating in this area. I think they're on the same cycle as the snowy owls. So if you look at Saru's eyes, She's a non-releasable bird. She was hit by a car. She had a broken wing that didn't heal properly, so she can't hunt silently. So we did a bunch of tests on her, and we decided she was non-releasable. So she's used for education. Now these guys love to hunt insects. They also will rob nests. They'll take little baby birds, but they hunt smaller things: salamanders, little frogs. They love. I know it's so tempting. You want to touch them, right? They are really cute. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. They love hunting crayfish. And these guys are deep in the woods. If you were to see one flying during the day, if you saw it, then you'd know it was a saw it maybe, or you might kind of dismiss it because they fly very sporadically like a moth or a butterfly, and so you wouldn't really think twice about it. And they do tend to be lower in the branches like Martin had mentioned, and they're also known for coming close to humans. Especially during hunting season. I know plenty of hunters that they had one of these guys like fly around, and my friend Paul was like, "Oh, get it away from me," he didn't know what it was. And he looked up and there was a great horned owl above him preying on this as a little appetizer, right? So he was trying to find safety, and he went to Paul McPhee, Lord knows why. Anyway, Martin did a great job of imitating their call. It's like a sonic call. They also have another call that sounds very much like a cricket or an insect, and there's no way on earth I can imitate that call. And if you look at their face, you can see he's got a very prevalent V above his eyes. Most of the birds that have that prevalent V in owls is a male, and the females, her, the marking above her eyes and below connect. So it breaks up all of her facial feathers, and that makes sense because she can be more camouflaged on the nest. These guys are found in hollows of trees.
Oh my gosh, look how
Is it the cutest thing in the world?
Now the owls that don't have ear tufts, like this one, their ears are asymmetrical. So one is higher than the other, but also their skull, a portion of it sits more forward than the other half of their skull. And the opening of one ear faces up and the other faces downward. They have the ability to flex their head, not only 270, 280 degrees in each direction, but they can also dial their head, their facial disc, around in a circle. They can take the back of their skull and touch their spine. Their flexibility in their neck is insane. Can you show them your wings? Does anybody have any questions about Saru? Yes.
Big wings for a small little way.
She does have big wings. Yes.
No.
Anybody else?
How old is that bird?
This bird is 2 years old. She's cute, isn't she? Oh, yeah. Makes you want to shove her in your front pocket. Yep. So I didn't have her on a glove, which I should. It's a little lazy of me, and their talons and their beak they hurt. And my daughter was helping me with a little sawwit a couple years ago, and it bit her, and she started to cry, and I'm like, oh, I can't believe you're crying. Look how little its beak is. And then it bit me, and I was like, Mother of God, I So their beaks and talons, especially their talons, are razor sharp. They, will cut right through your skin, and they curl and pull. Let's see. So our second smallest owl is a screech owl. And Martin had some great pictures of their camouflage. Is Rooney? Oh, hey, Tip, how are you? So this is Scout, and so screech owls have ear tufts. Can you show me your ear tufts, please? They have like little horns. Show me your ear tufts. Oh. So these guys have little horns, and I believe that yes, they are used for camouflage. They're also used for communicating, but I do think that they aid in pushing sound down to their ear channels. And the reason I believe that is because their ears, on tufted owls, their ears are located just below their eyes, and they look more symmetrical. However, they're not symmetrical because, again, if you look at the skull, it's a little contorted, and one is facing up and one is facing down. But if you watch them when they're communicating and they're moving around, sometimes those ear tufts are moving up and down very slowly. So my theory is that they are catching sound and it's pushing it down into those ear canals. These guys have amazing camouflage. You know, and when they put their ear tufts up and they contort their body, they look like a jagged, broken branch. These guys come, in our area, we tend to see more red and gray morph screech owls. There's what's called an intermediate morph phase, and it's kind of a chocolate brown with cream streaking in it. They're more common down in the south, which would make sense because their habitat is different than ours. Their hardwoods, you know, and softwood forests are different than ours. And Martin had a great picture of a red morph screech owl. When they molt, it's pretty disturbing to watch. You think they're sick. Their head looks like the size of a thumb, and then their body is huge. I got all these pictures last year, and they're like, something's wrong with this owl. And I was like, maybe there is something wrong with it, but it was just molting because then mine started to molt, and I was like, oh, you guys look awful when you molt. These guys have a high-pitched whinny, and see, this is why we have this. And you know, raptors they're basically solitary animals, and so when they come together, they mate, they nest, they raise their young, and then their young leave. And usually the female heads out and takes a little sabbatical, and then they come back and do it again 6 months later. I think that they have relationships formed out perfectly. Scout came to me from Utah. She was hit by a car. If you look at her left eye, you can see her pupil is deformed. It's always dilated. She can't see properly out of that eye. And so she's a non-releasable bird. What we do before we release a wild bird is we run them through a bunch of tests. We assess them on their hunting skills and make sure that they can successfully hunt. We don't want to set them up for failure and, you know, get hit by a car again. Does anybody have any questions about Scout? Yes?
Is there any variation in the size from the one morph to another?
Variation in size? The variation in size is more female and male. The female can be 25 to 30% larger than the male. And the theory behind that in all raptors is that the male is smaller because he's more agile and he can get in and out of spaces in hunting.
Do they puff their wings up to make themselves appear to be bigger?
That's a great question. They puff their wings up to make themselves look bigger. Just like a cat or a dog or any other mammal, they will raise their fur, right? And they'll turn sideways and they'll make themselves look bigger to intimidate the predator. Owls do the same thing. Exact same thing.
Twice the size of that I've seen.
Yeah, and they also will shimmer their feathers, and a lot of times people will ask me, is that bird cold? And maybe it could be cold, but more than likely it's not cold. I think it's a defense mechanism because when you start looking at their markings, it disorients your eyes. It's just like looking at a squirrel's tail. When it's twitching it, making that kind of nasty little call, if you were to sit and look closely at the fibers on that tail, your eyes get disoriented. So it's a great tactic, right? Defense tactic. Any other questions? Yes.
Disoriented.
What does disoriented mean? It means it's like it mixes up your eyes and you can't see where the animal is. So I don't know if you know what a starling is. It's a bird. It has little polka dots all over it. These little markings are kind of goldish. And when an aerial predator like an accipiter or hawk is going after them, they fly in certain patterns, and the hawk's trying to concentrate on one bird, and all those little markings on that bird is mixing up his eyes because of the movement of all the other birds. So usually when animals are hunting, and Martin can probably back me up on this, they don't get what they're hunting successfully every single time. There's times that they'll go for days, 5-7 days without a successful hunt. It's hard out there. So, and that's the cycle of life, whether they can do it or not, right? Did I answer your question okay? Does it make sense? Mix up their eyes? Yep. All right. So the next owl that Martin, he was talking about that we don't have in our area is a barn owl. And when I bring him out, I want you to look at his toes, and you're going to see that the feathers on his toes, there's very little feathers, so he's not equipped for our terrain. It's too cold. And they do come up here. They have been seen up in the Rhode Island, the Cape area. Oh wow, you're looking up. So if Jay Leno was a bird, right? Nice square jaw. You guys don't know who Jay Leno is. These guys, Martin was talking about how their hunting skills, amazing. Owls' ears, I think probably are more detrimental to them than their eyes, because they can see an infrared light. All birds see an ultraviolet light, but their hearing, they can hear the heartbeat of a mouse, a mammal, up to 3 feet under snow or cover, and they know what direction that animal is going in. So without even seeing it, they can pounce through that snow and grab that mammal. It's pretty amazing. Now the impact of their feet hitting that mammal is equivalent to a 1-ton truck hitting a 175-pound man. So the blast of an owl hitting you, any bird of prey, would not be fun. You get a concussion, you'll get lacerations. So, yes?
She had that happen.
You had that?
Yeah. I was hit and taloned by a barn owl.
B-A-R-R-E-D?
Barred.
Barred, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it hurts, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, although they look really sweet and cuddly, they're wild, right? And we don't know what they're all capable of doing. I've had a barred owl hit me in the head and take my hat off my head. And my head went flying forward. You never hear it coming because their whole body is coated in a soft coating, a velvet coating, and then the edge of all their feathers. It's not just the leading edge of their wing feathers. All their feathers have a serrated, broken edge. So sound comes up and over and around their body, and then that velvet coating muffles the sound, and as it's coming across the body, the feathers separate and pull the sound apart. So they are dead silent. You cannot hear them coming up on you. But I'll see if he'll do a little call for you. Martin was talking about how they're called. It is an extremely disturbing call. He won't do that call for you, but let me tell you, if I wasn't aware of this call and I was in the woods at night, I would run for my life. It's a really eerie call. It makes the hair on your neck stand up. But he makes a really cute static call, and then he also makes like a little chirp call. Okay, so I know you want to be higher. And he thinks I'm his girlfriend because I've had him since he was a chick. and that's called imprinted. Does anybody know what imprinted is? So it's a stage of development when a species identifies itself with another species. So he identifies himself with people. He thinks he's human, and obviously he's not. He tries to lure me in his nesting box. And I'm like, A, I don't fit. B, it's not going to work. Let's see if he'll do a little call for you. Can you chirp? Can you chirp again? Can you chirp? Oh, no. Can you chirp one more time, please? Just once. One more time. Can you chirp? No. He's not gonna do it. I don't know if you noticed when he closed his eyes, the brown patch is around his eyes, and then he has a center brown patch that comes right down the middle of his facial discs. Can you see that? I know, I'm so sorry. But you can see that, right? So when he closes his eyes, he pushes his facial disc forward, so that ridge of the brown comes forward, and then that it breaks up that white marking, his heart-shaped facial disc, and then the brown around his eyes. And you'd think these guys would pop out in the wild, but they don't. You look at his feathers and you see all the little markings on them. Again, these markings are used to defend himself and to disorient the eyes of a predator. He did it to me. He's got markings that stream, these little polka dots that go down his head. And so when he's upset, he puts his head down, and he looks like he's shaking his head, no, 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 no. But what he's doing, I taped it in slow motion, he's doing it in a figure 8. And my eyes literally were like, what are you doing? And my eyes got mixed up, and he jumped up and grabbed me with his talons. And I'm like, wow, that is a really cool tactic. Now, getting back to rodenticides, a nesting pair of these usually has an average clutch of 5. So if you have a male, a female, and then you've got 5 young, in a year's time, those 7 birds will eat 5,000 rodents. Wow. So if we let, again, Mother Nature do her job and let each animal that has a job in the ecosystem, we don't need poison. Again, use snap traps if you can. And if you have cats and dogs and you're afraid that they're going to get their paw on them, go buy PVC pipes. Put them inside the PVC pipe. And then your cat can't get its paw in there, and your dog can't get its paw in there, okay? Any other questions about the barn owl? Do you have a question? I want to hold them. So in order to hold these birds, you have to have what's called a state and a federal license, because they're protected. So maybe when you get older, like when Martin gets older, he'll probably be holding owls. So you should make it a goal, right? They're pretty cool. And you can see how flat his face is, right? All the owls have that same ability. They all have that same shaped, heart-shaped disc. It just looks different because the patterns on each species looks different. And I recently saw a great picture of a barred owl, and the ridge of its facial disc was forward, so it was moving that sound across its face like a satellite dish. It looked really eerie because I had never seen a barred owl's face in that form. It's cool. They are very beautiful.
I like the first one because that was so cute and small.
He is really little, isn't he?
And the third one?
I'm gonna have, oh, whoa, slow down. I'm gonna have Tiffany walk around with some feathers, and would anybody else want to help me show feathers to people? Okay, so okay, who else wants to help? So these guys will walk around the room. If you want to be touched with a feather, you're gonna put the top of your hand facing up to the ceiling, okay? Don't have the palms of your hand, the top of your hand, less oil. And someone will walk by with a feather, and they will brush it across your hand so you can feel how soft it is, okay? So you want to help? So you're going to walk around, people are going to hold their hands out. Let me show you what they're going to do. You're going to go like this with the feather on their hand, okay? You want to help? There you go. All right. You want to help? Here you go. Anybody else? Oh, yeah, perfect. I love all these helpers. Here you go. So make sure you get all the way to the back. Here you go. I don't have any more. I'm going to have you show something else, okay? So when raptors eat, and it's not just raptors, it's any songbird. Excuse me. So any bird that eats insects, if they eat mammals, make sure everybody felt it. You go walk around and ask other people if they want to feel it. They throw up or cast up what's called a pellet. And Martin had covered this, that it's almost like a little holding tank. Some birds have crops, some birds have gizzards. And so the mammal will sit, you could just put it right on the table there for me when you guys are done. It takes about 8 to 12 hours once they've eaten the food they've eaten. Usually owls eat everything whole. They rip the head off first, and then they'll eat the rest of the body. If obviously it's a bigger animal, it takes a little longer. They can't scarf down a whole a skunk. But so the food goes in an owl. It goes into what's their gizzard, their second stomach. You can put it right there, lay on the table. Okay, you go over there too. Perfect. And the bones, the feathers, the fur will separate. Okay, and then they'll digest the rest. Now the bones, the fur, and the feathers, the enzymes that are breaking down the animal are still breaking down elements in the bones and the feather and in the fur. They're absorbing some minerals, some supplements out of that, and then they cast it up in what's called a pellet. So when I'm going through the woods and I find these, it's like I found a gold nugget. I'm so stoked. My dad is like, you are carrying puke around in your stomach. So this came from a very large great horned owl on my property. I have a nesting pair of great horned owls. I haven't been able to find the nest. Drives me crazy. I'm out there every day, but I'm finding their pellets. And usually with owls, because they eat everything whole, you can take apart the whole skeleton and put the mammal back together. Now with hawks, they tend to pull things apart, so some of the bones are broken. With falcons, they shred it. Like they just crush, they pluck it first and then they crush all the bones. So that one's a little harder to put together. That's like a jigsaw puzzle with 10,000 pieces. So I'm not going to have you guys touch these because, they're kind of gross. But if Tiffany, if you want to walk around and let people see them, they can take a look at them. The next owl is Rooney, and he fell out of a nest down in South Carolina. He and his siblings. I know. And he got imprinted, so this facility called and asked if I would like him for education, and I said, of course. Are you going to look at the guys? Remember when Martin was talking about how the elevator doesn't go to the top floor with owls? The whole wise card. Step up. So owls' favorite, great horned owls' favorite thing to eat are skunks. They help control our skunk population. And if you've noticed, hey, voices down. If you've noticed, I've been seeing a lot of skunks hit by cars, right? So again, all those cycles coordinate. If we've got a high number of skunks, then we've got a high number of great horned owls. Just like the snowy owls, when they have an influx of lemmings, they have an eruption of snowy owls. And so this year, we will probably see an abundance of great horned owls. Now, these guys, there was a nesting pair of great horned owls down on the Merrimack River, and smart birds, the male and the female were hunting the young of the osprey in the nest. So they depleted that source of osprey that year along the Merrimack River. And I have to say though, smart bird, you know, he didn't need to go hunt too far, just helped himself and nest and brought it back to, you know, the nesting site of their great horned owlets. Now these guys normally, come on, step up. There you go. Normally birds of prey only pick up about 1/3 of their weight because they don't weigh very much, right? So they have hollow bones. Like Martin said, you can stick your finger like way into their feathers and it's a little tiny body underneath there. It's like a poodle, you know, you stick your finger in all that fur and there's this little skeleton underneath there. So when you think about the size of a great horned owl, they usually weigh between 3.5 and 5 pounds. He's really on the small side. He weighs about 2.5 pounds, and that's because he's a southern bird. So you think about a 2.5 pound bird, it can't pick up a small dog. It physically can't. However, a great horned owl is top of the food chain. So they don't mind being on the ground because they'll look at a coyote and say, bring it, you know. All they do is flip on their back and they grab them with their feet. Their feet have a ratcheting mechanism and you can physically not open their feet. If you're caught in their foot, you're toast. I'd rather get bit than footed by a bird of prey. Does anybody have questions about the great horned owl?
Do they ever scavenge or do they just do fresh kills?
So, do they ever, are you asking if they'll eat roadkill or fresh kill? So typically they will kill their own, but I've seen many birds eating on fresh roadkill, and why not if it's fresh, right? And they know, it's interesting to watch these birds eat, because when they're eating it, and this is kind of gross, but when they're eating the intestines, it's so strange. They only eat the small intestines, but they don't eat the large intestines. And they slurp it up like spaghetti, and then they flick the large intestines. And I don't know if they do that because it's like a natural probiotic. You know, I have no idea like why they only, in the stomach, they throw the stomach content. So they know, and if food has gone bad, they won't eat it. And it makes me wonder, they don't have a great sense of smell, but they must have some sort of sense of smell. And when they clack as a warning, keep your hands up, I promise I won't forget, okay? They clack as a warning, and that clacking, if you watch them, they're pulling the air in their mouth. Even the hawks do it. And when they're pulling that air in their mouth, they're taking in the odor of what's around them. They're definitely doing it. You can see their tongue pushing it up. They do have a slit in the roof of their mouth, but they do not have a Jacobson's organ like snakes and other animals. What's your questions?
It's not really a question, but do you know how birds migrate?
How they migrate?
They only sleep for 30 seconds.
They only sleep for 30 seconds? How do you know that?
So, I have a bird book at home, and it has a great horned owl on one of the pictures.
It does. They're pretty intense, aren't they?
And there's a sound, you just push the button, and it makes the sound.
And what's the sound? Can you do it? Anybody else want to try a great horned owl call? So my father told me, you know, you might want to look in the mirror when you do your owl calls because your face is kind of funny. I don't face people now when I do my owl calls. I sat in the mirror and I'm like, oh my God, that's horrible. And just like us, owls have a different range. You know, they might have a high call or a low call. My call is a little higher because I don't have a low voice. But a great horned owl call is a it's like that 5 beat traditional call that you hear on TV. Do you want to try again your owl call? Anybody else want to try the great horned owl call? Yeah, let's hear you did it. That's good. No? We don't have any hunters here that use their owl calls to flush turkeys? No? All right, I'll get the next bird. So our, yes?
Why is he making a little cooing on a little tiny?
Okay, so he's doing his little baby tantrum call.
He didn't like that. He didn't like that.
But just recently, he's been practicing his adult call, and just like when young men their voices changing, it kind of cracks. Same thing. He's like, and it's just like kind of wipes out a little bit. It's great. Nick, can you show him your ear tufts? And then his ears are located right here. Right here. Now you want to go in, huh? What he's a year old. So Mark had a great point about the wisdom comment, and why do they call them, old wise owls? They have ADD, they get distracted extremely easily. They also have the ability to, same with the diurnal, hawks and falcons, they have the ability, like us, they have binocular vision, so their fields cross, right, to whatever they're focusing on. But they also have the ability to use their eyes separately. So one eye could be looking over here and another one could be looking over here. And you'll see their pupils dilating as they're taking in different, objects at what they're looking at. Now, when we're born as humans, we wail, right? Those first couple of weeks. And the theory is that we see upside down just like a camera lens. We take in the world upside down and our optical nerve flips that information, kicks in, and then we see the world right side up. Now, if you've ever looked at young raptors, their heads are like bobbing, moving, twisting their head. And a lot of times, their head's upside down, looking at people and objects, and they believe that they see upside down as well. Now, when it comes to the wise old owl, if you were to use, an object to show you the comparison of the size of their owl compared to their actual face, it would be 2 oranges or 2 small grapefruit. So that's taking up a lot of room in their skull, not leaving a lot of brain matter, right? However, it's made up with their optical nerve. So birds' optical nerve processes 10 times, probably even more faster than that. So you look at a mourning dove or, a pigeon flying 60 miles an hour, and it's being pursued by, let's say, a peregrine falcon. That bird being preyed on is processing. I'm in a lot of trouble. I got a peregrine falcon on my tail. I can't head for the sky. And this is all happening in seconds, right? I'm going to head for the woods. I can outfly that bird through the woods. It's not equipped to fly through the woods. However, if it's an accipiter hawk and it's pursuing a pigeon or a dove, it's like, if I head for the woods, it can outfly me through the woods, so I'm going to head for the sky. Now that's like us driving down the highway, knowing how many cylinder car or truck is coming up behind us and what we need to do. We don't have that awareness. We do, we're just not tapped into it, right? So I'll bring up my next bird. An owl see 10 times brighter than us. I want to show you this too, sorry. So Martin had a great picture of owls' eyes are locked in tubes. They're the long tubes, right? And so they're locked in there. They don't have very, 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 very little mobility. So they cannot move their eyes up, down, side to side, cross their eyes, right? They're locked forward, and that's why they have that adaptation that allows them to turn their head 270, 280 degrees in each direction. If you look at just the skull, this is a great horned owl skull, and you see how much room the eyeballs take up. It's pretty crazy. It doesn't leave a lot of room in there for brain matter, right? So I was doing a program just 2 weeks ago, and I walked in and there was all these stuffed animals. It was for Fish and Game, bobcats, fisher cats, badgers, like up above, everywhere. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a disaster. Like predators just like everywhere, right? And it was interesting because my birds like looked at everything, was like, whatever. There was no energy coming out of them. They see magnetic fields, they see the heat coming out of what they're hunting, you know? So I was like, that's so cool. They're not afraid of stuffed animals, you know? It was pretty amazing to see that. And then they see a dog or a cat and they puff up like a peacock and try to, hi. So this is a relative to our great horned owl. She's a cousin. It's the largest owl species in the world. I think she looks like a mammoth cat. So our great horned owls weigh between 3.5 and 5 pounds, and Leela weighs, I'm going to say, picking her up today, she's probably closer to 9. She used to weigh 8.5. Wow. Maine Coon cat. So this is a Eurasian eagle owl. They're native to Siberia, Russia, and Asia. She was born in captivity, strictly for education, exhibits, zoos, things like that. You can see her ear tufts, her little antennas. When she's really upset, they go straight up. She makes her body really skinny. And her facial disc feathers, her beautiful round eyes, go like these narrow, mean eyes. You know that something's up. Let's see if she'll show you her wingspan. If you look at the size of her feet, you can see that the feathers come all the way down to the tips of her talons, which she's equipped for crazy snow, you know, the conditions in Siberia, Russia, and Asia. Now, if she was in her natural setting, what they hunt is wolverines, small mule deer, you know, small like coyotes. So the power of her blast, you can only imagine. Can you show me your wings? So if you're really quiet, listen, you won't be able to hear her wings. Ready? Shh, be really quiet. So you can't hear them coming up on you. And you'd think a bird this big, you'd hear the feathers, right? Does anybody have any questions about Leela? Yes? What kind of owl? How old is she? She's going on 5. Wow. Yeah, so they're full grown at 4 months old. These guys grow really fast. Yes? A feather fell off.
Under the table.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'll get that. Yeah, you could just put that on the table. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yes?
Now, some owls, depending on what they don't all bring them back, their prey back to the roost. Like their prey is big, so they would stay and eat their prey on the ground.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, this gentleman just said that when they prey on something large, obviously they can't carry it up to the tree, but they don't really have anything that preys on them. They might have, you know, another Eurasian eagle owl, or if they were surrounded by maybe a pack of wolves or something, But they don't really mind being on the ground because they're top of the food chain for an aerial predator. What's interesting is when you're in the woods, when I'm flying my birds and I'm going through the woods, the animals all work together. So you've got chipmunks, red squirrels, gray squirrels, and they have ground predator call, aerial predator call. And so when I'm flying my hawk, you know, I've got an aerial predator and I'm a ground predator, and they've got both calls going, just calling everyone and their mother to come help. So crows will come in from every direction, all the little songbirds, and they'll just sit and just blast my bird over and over again. Obviously they don't come up to me, but it's interesting to see how the forest comes together and works together as a community to flush out that predator. Did you have a question?
Oh, no, I was just,
I know, I know. Yes, do you have a question?
Give us a lifespan of the various species of the owl.
Oh,
one older
yeah.
than another.
What is their lifespan? So it's opposite of our dogs. So a bigger dog has a shorter lifespan and a smaller dog has a longer lifespan. So bigger birds, a bird like this could live up to 50 years in captivity, and a little tiny, like a saw-whet, might live 5 to 10 years in captivity. Now out in the wild, the odds are against them like every other species. Only 10% make it that first year, right? And then each year the odds are against them that they probably won't make it, you know. So the odds are stacked against them. But that's just the cycle of life, you know. It's the strong will survive. Can you show them your one more time, please? She is really pretty, and her feather markings are really, really beautiful.
You said that's the top of the food chain. What about an eagle?
An eagle's equivalent, but an eagle is, you know, the daytime hunter, and she would be, you know, your twilight crepuscular hunter. Now, all these birds will hunt around the clock. Owls will hunt around the clock during nesting season because they have to keep up with the metabolism of these young growing at such a fast rate, right? So you will see them hunt around the clock, but the other half of the year, they do hunt at a specific time of the day. And Martin, I love that you pointed out that they bask and soak up the sun. They need vitamin D just like us. They need all the same vitamins, all the same minerals, you know, all the same nutrients that we need. They just eat a different form of food. Yes?
You said you let the bird, you fly your birds. You actually let them go and fly?
Yeah, some of them. I can't let her fly off because she's a non-native species, so I would get in trouble if she just kept going and, you know, I didn't get her back. But the native birds, I do fly. Yep. Any other questions? Do you have a question?
How long have you been doing this?
Yes.
And how popular are you? Because people from Utah and the Carolinas send you birds.
Oh, that's a nice question. So I don't know if I'm popular, but wait, say it again.
How long?
How long have I been doing this? So eight and a half years ago, I found 10 dead barred owls on Route 101 in a 2-month period of time in New Hampshire. And with each owl I picked up, I moved off the shoulder of the road into the woodlands, just to prevent another animal from getting hit by a car. And I just felt like there was a reason I kept coming in contact with all these dead barred owls. And I didn't go to school for biology, zoology, ornithology, no ologies. I went to school for textiles and design. And I just got involved, and then I saw a need for something in southern New Hampshire and opened up my facility. And Doug is a friend of mine from Oshkosh, Wisconsin, so he knows I'm a total chatty Cathy. I know everybody's business, and of course I have made friends with rehabbers across the country, and they'll call me when they have a bird that, you know, needs a home and ask me if it would be a good fit for my team. And I'm flattered that they do that because they know I have a great setup and I take good care of my birds. So, yeah. Yeah.
What other type of birds do you have?
I have a Gyr falcon, got 2 red-tailed hawks. Today was owl day, so I've got a pied crow that he thinks he's a human. He's pretty funny. a red-shouldered hawk. I have a snowy owl. And something like this would just be too much for him. It's just, they're very high-strung birds, and he'd be utter chaos for him and me. And then I have a handful of injured birds that are getting ready to go back to the wild. Yes?
What kind of social needs does she have?
What kind of social needs does she have? They're not very social. They don't interact like a parrot. So she goes through phone books. She loves to shred paper. And she has stuffed little animals, and she rearranges them all the time in her area. But for the most part, they kind of just busy themselves. They don't really interact. Yes?
I have another question. The imprinters, is that a big challenge when they get an injured animal to get it so it doesn't imprint and they release it quickly so they
Yeah,
will be
so how do
effective back in the wild?
So how do you prevent imprinting? And it can only happen when they're young. So if I get an adult bird in, you really can't imprint them. You can habituate them, but they'll go wild again. So, and we try to have very little contact with the wild birds. Don't talk around them, and never affiliate food with a human, because now you're setting them up to look at hands as food, and they'll snag you in the hand or the eye or the ear. So you got to be careful. The babies, we again don't talk to them. I usually use like some sort of lid, and I have a glove with long hemostats. So again, they're not seeing any human element giving them food. And we try to re-nest them. It's better if they're raised by their own kind. They have a better success rate being raised by their own kind versus being raised by humans. Yes?
How many of the owls that you have here are owls that were made for life?
Well, they all will. So, but none of them have mates. So, I mean, they jump on me and think that they can mate with me. But they don't have partner. I don't have a propagation license.
Oh, no, I don't mean that. I just mean of the species that you have here, how many of them actually?
Well, right now, like injured birds, they all have mates out in the wild, which just kills me because, you know, when you go to pick up a bird this time of year, you know their other half is waiting on the nest for a food delivery, and she's not going to get it. And so they usually abandon that clutch if the eggs aren't hatched or if they're newly hatched, because the female can't do it all by herself or the male can't do it all by herself. Yeah.
You mentioned you had a deer falcon. Are those still highly endangered? Is there still very few, I heard?
Well, there are very few down here, right? So that's an Arctic bird.
Yeah.
And mine was born in captivity. He's a retired falconry bird. And he's actually a hybrid. He's 50% deer, 50% peregrine.
Oh.
He's a beautiful charcoal gray.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. But you rarely see them around here. Every once in a
Are they
while
still
on the coast you'll see them.
on the verge of being extinct was what I had heard, the deer falcon?
No, I don't know. That's a good question. I'd have to look that up.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen them.
I was just so surprised to
in
hear you
Maine.
say you had one.
Yeah. In Wisconsin, my dad sees them, but I don't see them that often.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Are owl boxes effective if you want to have more owls in your property?
Yeah, so I would put your owl box facing, Martin might know this better, maybe like southeast, southwest facing. And I would probably do maybe a dozen of them, because more than likely you're gonna get squirrels in most of them. And with luck, you might get an owl in there. I think the smaller owls are probably easier to get to go in a nesting box. Because it's been my observation when I'm out in the field is that most nesting sites in a hollow of a tree has a back door, side door, front door, roof door. So they have access to escape if a predator was to get in. In those nesting boxes, there's only one way in and one way out. So maybe you invent a nesting box that has a couple entry points and you might have luck that way.
I got one more question.
Sure.
Everybody enjoys the snowies around here this time of year, and
Yeah.
they're gonna be migrating.
Yeah.
And I was told, like you said, that they don't, a bird of prey doesn't always be successful when they hunt. They
No.
miss.
Yeah.
So I was told they have limited, they're storing up their energy. So if you harass a bird, you don't have a long lens and you want the flight shot and you're not willing to wait, that bird's using up energy it doesn't have for the hunt.
Right. No, you're totally
You
right.
know what I mean? And people, well, there's no signs. I can walk out on the grass with my, no.
Yeah, if I was there, I'd hit you with a stick
You're
or a
killing the
taser
bird.
gun. 'Cause, you're supposed to stay 500 feet away from
Buy a
wildlife.
lens.
Yeah, and stay 500 feet away because you're harassing wildlife. Those are federally protected birds.
They're a lot
and
closer than 500 feet.
yeah, grab a stick. No, I'm just kidding.
You know what I mean?
It's not right, and
And that bird,
and they are highly strung birds, so you're making them burn up those calories of hunting, and if they didn't get something that day, now they're burning their reserve.
they have to go home.
And one thing about the snowy owls is look at a tidal chart. If you want to see them moving, they hunt according to that tidal chart. So as the tide's coming in, that's moving the earth floor, and all those mammals are moving for higher cover, right? And so with that movement, those snowy owls will start to hunt. Same with the short-eared owls. And when the tide is going out, they're going to follow that tide because now those little mammals are following the water out in hopes of finding little treasures that are left there from the ocean. And the other thing is to be downwind. If you're downwind, these birds hunt flying into the wind. They can manage their flight better, so they can control the way they're flying and maneuvering. So you always want to be downwind of them, and be patient. No flushing them, no throwing sticks. Yeah.
Just drives me nuts because I said something, oh, there's no signs. Do you need a sign? Really?
Yeah.
Do you really need a sign?
Yeah, say the sign of the bird being
Well, that should
stressed
be
out. Yeah.
It's called common sense.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you. It's that's a tough one. Call Fish and Game, they'll come out and straighten them out.
Amazing people don't have common sense.
That's very true. Thank you guys so much. Thank you.